wonderful A-plusers out there. It is I, Stuart, here once again to give you guys another review of Kamen Rider Saber. This time we're going to be talking about episode number 20. The monster of the week continues to build his tower out of people's cars. Let's hope they got good insurance. Meanwhile, Shingo continues to struggle for control of his body, but to no success. Back at the Sword of Logos, Tetsudo confirms to them that Touma has been telling the truth about humans being taken over by monsters. Awesome! This means the next time they see him, they'll most likely want to actually talk things out and actually listen to what he has to say this time, right? This conversation is cut short, however, by Rika, who tells them, human or not, their duty is to destroy them regardless. This should have definitely been a red flag to the group, and while not all of them are exactly on board, they're not exactly putting in an effort to even try to convince her otherwise. We then get a scene with the villains that really shows how unfunctional our heroes are. Our villains have gone from being constantly unorganized and butting heads with each other to now being the organized group that the writers used to be. We also do get confirmation that whatever Rika is up to, the villains have nothing to do with it. We cut to Ren, who's extremely conflicted. On the one hand, he knows Kento would have trusted Touma with his life, but on the other hand, he has immense hatred for Touma for believing in the word of Kento's killer. Rika, of course, takes advantage of his confliction as she convinces him Touma is the true enemy. Now, this is the part where I once again continue to bitch about the writer's blind loyalty to the Sword of Logos, right? Wrong. You see, while I did have major issues about the conflict between Touma and the writers, it's not because the conflict shouldn't happen, it's because the way it's executed the last few episodes has just not been good. Telling a group of individuals all at once that their friend is a traitor shouldn't lead to blind loyalty. Going to a group of individuals one by one when they're at their most vulnerable mentally is how you do it. That and the fact that Ren has already been established as a hot-headed, arrogant asshole, I actually do really like this scene. Touma finally catches up with Shingo, but Shingo is of course transformed back into the monster of the week. What follows is an all-out brawl that is so cool but also extremely difficult to explain, but I'm gonna try. Touma tries to hold off the monster of the week until Yuri arrives, but Legail joins getting in Toma's way, followed shortly by Ren showing up. Instead of trying to hold off Legail so Touma can free Shingo from the monster of the week, he goes after Touma, making it a 3-on-1. Yuri does eventually show up, but for reasons unexplained, he starts spacing out, so Mei has to activate his henshin device for him. Finally, just as you thought the battle couldn't get any crazier, Disaster shows up, not really taking sides, but instead he just starts attacking everyone. After all of that, we get a scene where Rintaro is trying to talk things out with Touma, and for once, I think Touma might have been the moron in this conversation. Let me explain. Touma knows about the loyalties the writers have with the Sword of Logos, and while Touma definitely has good reasons to believe that there's corruption in the Sword of Logos, telling someone who's been raised by them their whole lives that there is absolute corruption instead of trying to convince him to consistently keep his guard up is not exactly how you go about getting people to see your perspective. This of course backfires on Touma when Rika shows up and tries to convince Rintaro that Toma's just there to seek power. And while Touma might have originally been the moron for starting out the conversation on a bad note, that doesn't excuse Rintaro for going along with Rika, especially after the many times Touma has continuously proven the last few episodes that his only intent is protecting people. That and followed by all of the adventures that Touma has had with Rintaro in the previous episodes. What I'm getting at is whether or not Rintaro believes Touma about the corruption within the Sword of Logos, Rintaro should know by now that Touma has no interest in power, and the fact that he's continuously believing Rika when she tells him that there's absolute corruption with Touma, that's what majorly bothers me about this whole thing. I feel like Rintaro's story arc should at this point just be maybe trying to trust a little bit of both. He should be the one trying to bridge Touma with the Sword of Logos. He should be the one trying to stick with both, and maybe that becomes his conflict later on, is that he has to choose one or another. But the fact that he continuously chooses just one, and that one being the Sword of Logos, it's what's really bothering me about the way they're kind of writing Rintaro's character. It made absolute sense for Ren, for sure, but with Rintaro, he just doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would just backstab his friends like that. As for Ogami and Tetsudo, I do like that in this episode you don't really see them fighting as much, mostly because they seem to be the older and wiser groups of the sort of logos, so they seem to be a lot more rash about how they try to approach it. Essentially, the way I want Rintaro to be approaching this is how it seems like Tetsudo and Ogami are approaching it. Eventually, Touma does free Shingo and destroys the monster of the week, and we find out that Yuri apparently can heal people now. Neat. Overall, I was kind of mixed on this episode. I do feel like they're really dragging out this conflict between Touma and the other writers way longer than it needs to be dragged on for. I kind of wish this would just finally come to an end either in this episode or in the next episode, but it does seem like they're really going to try to drag this out for at least another 4 or 5 more episodes. I don't know. I really hope I'm wrong about that. But overall, it wasn't really a bad episode. It was okay. There were just some weird bits of comedy also that I didn't really touch upon when talking about the structure of the episode, just because there was like a lot going on in this episode. The bits of comedy were a little bit weird. Just they felt very out of place. You had Yuri, who was just spacing out the entire episode, which they kind of have done before with him being the fish out of water. But for here, it's less about him being a fish out of water and more about him just being weird and just not being all there. Like, I don't know if he's on something or I don't know. It just, to me, that was kind of like the weird out of the place moment of the episode that kind of took me out of it. And then the other thing is that, yes, I like I said before, the conflict between Touma and the other writers is dragging, and I wish maybe one writer an episode would start, like, you know, believing Touma more. So like what they kind of hinted at with Tetsudo, like it would be kind of cool if maybe after one episode a new writer would join Touma, so then by the end of it Rika has no one except for maybe Ren, because I don't see him believing Touma anytime soon. So, you know, I think that would be like an interesting direction that they could take it. But you know, at the end of the day, guys, these are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so definitely let me know in the comments below. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and if you guys are interested in donating to our channel, we do actually have a Patreon now. Definitely don't feel pressured to, but if you guys are interested in throwing maybe $1 our way every month, definitely feel free to check out our Patreon. I've been doing Kamen Rider Ryuki and Kamen Rider Dragon Knight reviews on our Patreon, and we also have now been uploading audio versions of our videos, so you can actually download an audio version if you want to listen to our show. Like, let's say you're trying to work out or you're going on a road trip or something and need something to listen to. Well, you can now listen to an audio version of our show on our Patreon for just $1 a month. But guys, at the end of the day, just remember to keep it A+.